we don't run out of dollars. In fact, there is right now a hefty gross international reserves. That is a debt, the stock of foreign exchange that is kept by BSP. And that is equivalent to 11.7% of our imports requirement, 11.7. The receive doctrine is if you have a dollar reserves equivalent to 3 months of your import requirement, you're okay. But we have close to 1 year of our import requirement. So we're comfortable. So crisis or no crisis, we have no fear. Now, the detailed explanation why the debt to GDP ratio will continue to decline, which suggests that the fear that we will be heavily indebted once more, like what happened during the Marcos years and the early years of the Cory Aquino administration, is not going to happen, is unfounded, is discussed in handout number 2. I think you'll get that also, right? And then on the third one, which is the General Padilla is here, the Marawi recovery, okay, which is just in time, right? What am I doing? The Marawi Recovery and Rehabilitation Program. So let me explain our position on this issue, okay? First, financing follows the plan, okay? We cannot talk of a number unless we have a plan. What is the plan, okay? So financing follows the plan. Second, the rebuilding of Marawi will be a multi-year task. It cannot be done in a few months or 1 year. So we're talking of a multi-year effort. And in fact, there is a task force created to prepare such a plan. Now, third, the process is well defined. You have to planning, then budgeting, then implementation, then accountability. Why is accountability important? Well, we learned our lessons from the Yolanda incident. The Filipino people should know how the money was spent, okay? Now, for the rest of the year, just to tell you, from August to December, that's 5 months, I have already identified some 5 billion pesos, okay, for the Marawi restoration. Okay, it's a standby money there. Okay, we will get it from the NDREAM, that's the National Disaster Risk and Management Fund, and then also there's part from the contingent fund, and there are existing budgets of some related agencies such as DOH, DSWD, DepEd, DA, DPWH, DOTR, and TESDA, and others. In fact, at this time, there are some offers from foreign grants from, say, the World Bank and the ADB. So that can also be tapped. So either multilaterals or bilaterals. So there are some countries that are also willing to help. So that's this year, 2017. Now in 2018, there's a 10 billion already set aside, okay, for the Marawi Recovery and Rehabilitation Program. So next year, the NDREAM Fund, that's the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund, will have a 25.5 billion allocation for 2018, of which 10 billion is set aside for Marawi. And then in 2019, an additional budget, yet to be determined, will be proposed, okay? Or maybe even 2020, depending on the recovery pace, okay? So thank you very much. I'm willing to answer questions.
Okay, Secretary, Office of Civil Defense, Ms. Lenny Alegre, to be followed by Brigadier General Restituto Padilla.
So good morning everyone, and today I will be providing you the updates on the Task Force Bangon Marawi. It's an interagency task force that has been created by virtue of Administrative Order number 3, which was issued by the Office of the President in June 28. And this particular task force has 23 member agencies. Please, for the next slide. So I have I have there the functions and responsibilities of the task force. And this has been organized already. They have their first meeting last July 7. So even before we end the conflict, the government is actually planning ahead for early recovery and rehabilitation as well as possible reconstruction. And the task force has also organized 5 subcommittees. For the next slide, please. And this subcommittees has identified leadership to fast-track the works and plans that will be putting in place for the Marawi City and surrounding reconstruction and recovery. So for the first subcommittee, we actually have DPWH, the Secretary of DPWH, to oversee the repair, rehab, and reconstruction of all national roads and bridges, public schools, and government buildings. The second task force is the Subcommittee on Housing. It is lodged in the Office of the Cabinet Secretary and is tasked for the immediate establishment, reconstruction of temporary and permanent shelters, together with the utilities that should be there. No? And the Subcommittee for Health and Social Welfare is for DSWD and DOH. This is directed to implement measures to provide sanitation and health facilities, medical supplies, food, potable water, and other basic necessities. And we also have the Business and Livelihood. It's headed by DTI, and of course the Subcommittee on Peace and Order. So as we have that first organizational meeting, for the next slide, I am going to show you how it is organized at the national level. Okay. So since we recognize that the 5 committees are all important, but we also recognize some important aspects that we need to support these subcommittees to ensure the smooth implementation of the plan that we are about to craft. We have identified finance and resource mobilization support that will be headed by DBM and DOF. As the secretary earlier mentioned, financing and other resource mobilization is quite important in this aspect. And we also have info management and strategic communication support, because we'll be updating you regularly on the progress of early recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction for Marawi. And then, of course, we recognize that there are legal concerns in the process of recovery and rehabilitation. So based on experience, we actually have some legal concerns on availability of lands for relocation, possible relocation or reconstruction of shelter. So this has been, and of course the Secretariat. The Secretariat is identified as the Office of Civil Defense. So we'll be backing closely the task force on whatever implementation in the future. And an executive director has been identified already by the Secretary of National Defense as the chairperson of the task force. And it's delegated to one of the undersecretary of the Department of National Defense. Okay. Next slide, please. So to update you on what has been done by the task force on Bangon Marawi. And when we say Marawi, it actually includes other environs of Lanao del Sur, because Lanao del Sur has also declared a state of calamity way ahead of Marawi, because there are areas that has been host communities to Marawi affected residents. So again, the first organizational meeting was immediately done in July 7. And in this particular meeting, the task force members agreed to work immediately, keep contact, closely coordinate with local government units, because consultative process and inclusivity are principles that we follow in the planning process for recovery and rehabilitation. And in July 12, we actually have the initial meeting of the Subcommittee on Housing, because the temporary shelter aspect, the site has been identified by local government units of Marawi City. So we have the mayor has identified a 10-hectare private land that they can actually utilize. We can actually utilize for temporary shelter, and DPWH has been starting to do the site development for us to set up the temporary shelter. And as we speak right now, the task force Bangon Marawi Executive Director is in Iligan City Good morning, sir.
Morning, ma'am.
Po. As we speak right now, the task force executive director is in Iligan City, meeting the executives of the local government units, the ARM governor, the Llano del Sur governor, the Iligan City mayor, and the Marawi City mayor, and the deputy cabinet secretary, Yusek Gloria Mercado, to speak on, to discuss on the concrete plan already on the temporary shelter. No? And on Monday, the task force member will be going down to Marawi City to meet with the local chief executives and, of course, discuss already the planning aspect, because right now the subcommittees were directed to prepare an initial plan and present to the local government units what these initial plans are. So the 5 subcommittees. On Monday, we anticipate that they will be presenting this already to the local government units, so we can initially do the preparatory stages of the plan. No? Okay, for the next slide, we move forward. As we move forward, the right planning will also be informed by the conduct of the post-conflict needs assessment. And with the establishment of, we call it transitional shelter, we are also in the preparatory stage on the conduct of post-crisis needs assessment. What is the PCNA? PCNA is actually a multi-agency and structured approach to do the assessment for the damages, the physical damage and the losses, as well as the human recovery needs. Because in the case of Marawi, it's very important that we recognize human recovery. And at the preparation stage is actually this week. We are tapping the necessary officials coming from the task force members to join us in the conduct of post-conflict needs assessment. And we will also be doing capacity building for the local government units representatives, as well as academic representative from the Mindanao State University, either in Iligan or in Marawi itself, the MSU in Marawi, because we will be engaging them in the post-conflict needs assessment. So they have the local knowledge, they can speak Maranao, they knew the culture, and of course the history of the area. No? And that's very critical in the post-conflict needs assessment. So this will be done on, initially, our target period is 2nd to 3rd week of July, and the deployment of the teams on ground. And this is subject to clearance of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. But right now, our indicative date is 2nd to 3rd week of July to 2nd week of August. And the data consolidation will be done on the 2nd and 3rd week of August, and the approval of PCNA report. This will be presented to the task force as well as to the NDRMC, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. This will be on 3rd week of August, if all things went well. No? And the second phase is actually the recovery and rehabilitation, which will include the preparation of the plan, as mentioned earlier by Secretary. And this plan we will be calling Bangun Marawi Comprehensive Rehabilitation and Recovery Program. So this is also identified in the administrative order that we need to come up with one based on the clustering of the subcommittees. So one is reconstruction, the second is housing, third is health and social welfare, fourth is business and livelihood, as well as peace and order. And all the dimension of this particular cluster will be recognizing that there's importance on healing and reconciliation, as well as conflict resolution in the area. And that will be an integral part of the plan. And this is targeted to be done August. So if we can finish with the PCNA on time, this plan will be formulated by August. And the approval is targeted in the 2nd week of September. And implementation, again, it's a multi-year implementation. Hopefully, we can start by September onwards. Okay, so that is the update from the task force on Bangun Marawi, and hopefully we can have one good update by next week, right after the discussion and initial planning with the local government units of Marawi, Iligan, and Llano del Sur, as well as the Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alegre. Presidential Spokesperson Ernesto Abella.
Just to round up this week's report regarding the rebellion in Marawi, as of 7 p.m., July 13. Civilians killed by terrorists, 45. This count is based on body recoveries, but as we go deeper into the contested areas, we expect the numbers to rise. It may rise based on potential execution of hostages or civilians killed in action. Civilians rescued by government troops, LGU, CSO, 1,723. Terrorists killed, 394. Recovered high-powered firearms from terrorists, 498. Government casualties, 93. Buildings cleared as of yesterday was 48. Recovery of significant developments. Recovery of 6 cadavers remains with orange garb believed to have been executed by terrorists. 2, clearing operations of buildings progressing positively, and as of 13th of July, 43 have been cleared, 53 and 54 previously, respectively in previous days. More or less 600 buildings remain to be cleared, 1,500 to 2,000 buildings, total facilities to be cleared at the beginning, of the conflict. Interagency Task Force, Bangon Marawi preparation underway, and GTG Ranao link-up ongoing. Just now to give you an update on the status of cash donations. As of 14:20 yesterday, 13th of July, here the status of the cash donations. For Marawi casualties, we have 5,554,823 and 23 centavos. And for Marawi IDPs, that's 779,727.21. Please.
Good morning. Thank you, sir. The Armed Forces is leaning forward on its linkage with the Interagency Task Force Bangon Marawi, and 2 of our engineering brigades are already on the ground, working closely with the other agencies that are in charge of the early recovery phase, primarily the preparation of the temporary resettlement area. The temporary resettlement area, which is expected or projected to house about 3,000 evacuees who are right now in the evacuation centers, is a major project that has to be undertaken even before hostilities end, to enable the local government and the national government to relocate and improve the living conditions of the evacuees who are now in the evacuation centers. As was mentioned, the AFP belongs to 2 subcommittees of the Interagency Task Force, one of which is the reconstruction, and the second one is the Peace and Order subcommittee led by the DILG. We will work closely with all these agencies to ensure that the task at hand in the reconstruction, rehabilitation, and rebuilding back of Marawi into a stronger, more resilient community becomes better. We will ensure the residents of Marawi that the armed forces will not leave the area until we have ensured that normalcy has returned and that we have been able to help each and every resident get back to their normal lives. That means to say the assistance of the armed forces will be there to provide security, to provide assistance along with the Interagency Task Force, and a host of other duties that will be given to us. That is all from my answer.
Okay, MPC, can we have your questions first for Secretary Benjamin Jokno? Hannah Sancho.
Morning, Secretary. Sir, you have mentioned na may mga countries na gustong tumulong. Can you cite po anong mga bansa po ito, sir?
I cannot cite the specifics, but I know that the World Bank and ADB has already approached us. No? They're willing to help. Okay.
The U.S., sir? Wala po.
I think U.S. has also offered to help. Okay. May offer then.
And China and Russia, sir?
Of course. China has already donated something like 15 million or something. They have already donated.
May amount na tayo sa US, sir?
Wala pa nga.
Pero nag-express na po siya, Sir Tutulong.
And this is continuing, going to continue, okay?
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Pia Rappler, to be followed by Cecil Lardizabal, CNN Philippines.
Sir, just to clarify on the amount for Marawi rehabilitation, sir, you mentioned 5 billion from the 2017 budget. This is only from the NDRM fund, is that correct?
Plus there are some slow-moving projects from other agencies. I think we can tap it to help.
But that's within the 5 billion?
That's within the 5 billion,
okay.
yes. Or it could be more, depending on the needs, as I said, because right now we're really waiting for the plan, okay? We're waiting for the plan. Okay?
Then, sir, so the amounts you mentioned, only total 15 billion, but the President always mentions the 20 billion amount. Can I just clarify if it's really just 15 billion, or you expect in the end it will be 20 billion?
No, actually, I expect it to be more than 20 billion, okay? Except that, as I said, this is going to be multi-year. So right now, we're setting aside 5 billion for this year, for the next 5 months. And then maybe 10 billion next year, could be more. Or in 2019, it could be a higher amount. So except that we don't have a handle of what's the situation there. Because there are all sorts of suggestions. No? In fact, I got a suggestion from June Palafox just right now. No? He said, let us, let me see. He said, let's leave the ruins as is, no? Yun ang kanyang suggestion. Let the ruins be like a memorial for peace, a museum for destruction of a peaceful city by terrorism, narcopolitics, lack of vigilance, and ineffective local governance, etc. And let us then build better, plan, design, develop, build a new city, which is Islamic, interfaith, international, inclusive, safer, smarter, sustainable, resilient, walkable, bikeable, livable, modern city, well into the 21st century. Okay? So that's one of maybe the proposals, and we're looking at many proposals from, not only from the government, but also from the private sector. Okay?
Sir, just on the foreign groups that have promised assistance, is the European Union and United Nations among those groups?
I think they are also offering, but I cannot talk of the specifics at this time. Right?
So they've actually made the
UNDP has offered also. Oh, right. I know that Hungary, for example, is also trying to offer some assistance to the agricultural sector, and that's also in Mindanao, etc.
Okay, thank you, Pia. Cecil?
Sir, you mentioned about...
I also, let me add, Indian government has also offered. Okay.
Sir, you mentioned about the 2018 national budget, which is 3.767 trillion for to be submitted, for submission as a Congress on SONA. And part of that is, sabi nyo, build infrastructure projects. One of the sources would be tax reform package, but the tax reform bill is still pending at the Senate. So how do you think will this impact on the big infrastructure projects of the administration?
We're confident that the tax reform package that Secretary Dominguez is pushing will be approved before the end of the year. We're talking of 2018. So we're confident that it will be pushed. It will be approved by both houses of Congress. It has already been approved by the House. So it's a priority measure, and I think that's one of the content of the President's SONA, to appeal to the Senate to approve this bill. Because it's not only fair, I think we need it if we want to be competitive, and if we want to give 99% of Filipinos a break, because this tax program, the tax system that we have has not been adjusted since the Ramos years.
Because it's taking an uphill climb at the Senate this time.
Some are negative, I'm positive. I think it will be pushed. It will be approved. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Joseph Morong, last question tayo kay Joseph for Secretary Jokno.
Sir, dun po sa 2017, you said there's going to be 5 million from different agencies.
Billion.
Na? Billion. Sir, hindi naman to, di ba ang sa DAP is dapat end of year before you transfer? So, but it is going to be what? Paano ba yun? Interagency transfers or halimbawa DSWD as a slow-moving project, within DSWD then yung movement ng pondo?
No, the bulk of this will come from the NDREAM fund, all right? And then the contingent fund. And then there are some agencies are already offering, right now, they have already communicated with me and say, look, we cannot spend this sum. So we can actually use that to augment the NDREAM or the contingent fund. Okay?
Sir, just as an aside, kasi we might let you go. Sir, yung pong sa BIR, there's a deputy commissioner there, si Aranas, Clint Aranas, no? And I understand, sir, that Commissioner Dulay asked that his investigative powers be removed from his office and transferred to the commissioner. That one you rejected, no? July the 6th or 7th, I think. Why did you reject, sir, the request?
No, that's on the basis of the recommendation of my staff, that this is not sound practice, and so I rejected it.
Okay. Sige, sir.
Okay, last three, Deo de Guzman, Philip Tubesa, and Darrell.
Sir, balik lang tayo sa national budget. May I ask, sir, kung magkano exactly yung inilaan natin for 2018 sa infrastructure? You said second siya sa pinakamalaki from DepEd.
It's here in the handout. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 6.9% of GDP. And that amount is in the handout, the first handout, okay? There's a table.
Yes, sir.
So that's DOTC, DPWH, and some...
so lahat na po yun. Lahat na po yun. So, punta po tayo sa 2017 national budget, sir. How much of the infrastructure budget sa 2017 ang nagastos na half of the year?
But that's a premature question because we're halfway, right?
Yung pong, yung sa half pa lang po, magkano po na-disperse?
Actually, I'll get the report by July 15, unfortunately, because there's a lag. Okay? So we have to look at what was spent from January to June, end June, and there's usually a 2-week lag before I get the information.
Are you looking
But
at...
it's picking up.
Speeding
It's picking up. In May, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it went up by about 30%, and preliminary data for June, about 21%.
So are you seeing na makakaabot tayo ng full disbursement, 100%?
I'm confident that it will hit something like 90% by the end of the year.
Yeah, kasi,
That's a record. That's a record.
Apo. Sige po. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Philip Tubesa.
Good morning, sir. Doon po sa infrastructure program natin, how much do we intend to borrow yung sa 160 to 180 billion dollars? May estimate na po ba tayo?
Hindi kasi the way it's funded. Fungible kasi yun eh. Sometimes we borrow for this. But let me give you some orders of magnitude. Our deficit is about 3%. That's our target, okay? 3% of GDP, okay? Our infrastructure program will be, as I said, about 6.9%. So we're actually putting a lot of the money that we'll borrow for infra, okay? Which is an investment for the future. Okay lang naman yan eh. Okay lang yan. So we're spending more for capital formation than what we're borrowing. Okay, put it that way.
Okay, thank you. Last question na, Darrell.
Hi, sir. Good morning. Sir, may I know what's your forecast for the second quarter GDP?
I don't do forecast.
Let's
just wait, okay? Let's just wait.
Sir, a second question. Is the government worried po on that the peso has reached near 11-year low, and what is the impact of this on the build program, sir?
No, as you know me, my position has been that let's leave it to the market. Right now, a peso depreciation favors more than half of the Filipinos because of the overseas Filipino remittances. Okay, so I'm not worried about the peso depreciation. Okay,
I think, sir.
And right now, our target, we relax it a little bit, is up to 52. Okay, so 48 to 52, I think that's our target. And You know, whenever you have a peso depreciation, that is favorable to our export sector, which will then create more jobs. And as I said, though the families of overseas Filipino workers like this, okay, the peso depreciation, because that will increase their purchasing power. Okay, and we're not too dependent on foreign loan because of the inflow of BPO income and also the overseas Filipino remittances. And in fact, as I told you, our gross international reserves, which is a stock of dollars that is kept by PSP, is 13.7% in terms of monthly requirement. The rule of thumb is 3 months. If you have a gross international reserves equivalent to 3 months of your import requirement, you're okay. Ours is 11.7%. So crisis or no crisis, we're okay. Okay. So I'm not afraid of the devaluation.
Okay, thank you. Secretary, last question. Joseph Morong, GMA 7.
Sir, bilang nasa budget naman yung usapan. Sir, yun po mga private individuals, I've asked this last week ata kay Spokesabella, but from the budget perspective, no? Yun po mga private individuals whose houses, whose businesses have been affected, paano, sir, yun? Iko-compensate ba sila ng government? May mabibigay ba na tulong in terms of maybe rebuilding their...
That's a policy decision. Okay. Normally, we give assistance to those which are fully damaged, certain amount, and partially damaged, certain amount. So, but I think we could even increase this because this is not man-made calamity. This is not natural calamity, right? There was really damage caused by the war in Marawi. So, but that will be decided upon maybe pretty soon. Okay, pretty soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Joseph Morong. Thank you, Budget Management Secretary Benjamin Jokno. Maricel Halili, TV5.
Hi, sir. Good morning. General Padilla. Sir, may we know if you already gave your recommendation to the President when it comes to martial law extension?
Right now, the assessment is on its concluding stage and will be given to the Chief of Staff, who will then do his vetting on the recommendation and eventually submitted to the Secretary of National Defense for submission to the Commander-in-Chief. The Secretary is the administrator of martial law and will necessarily have to have his inputs into the document.
Okay, sir. So how soon do we expect that AFP will give the
Today is the 53rd day, if I'm not mistaken, of the martial law period. We still have about a week. We hope to give the recommendation way before the deadline.
Sir, kasi I understand may meeting si Presidente with some lawmakers on Monday as announced by some senators, and one of the topics will be the extension of martial law. So I'm wondering if it's possible to give the recommendation before the meeting on Monday.
I am sure that the President is getting updates so regularly, and he may even have an advanced copy of the recommendation prior to that. Because he is the Commander-in-Chief and he has to know, of course.
So meron ng kopya, sir?
Kung matapos na po ito. Kasi kinakailangan po matapos nung working committee or working group, tapos bibigay po kay Chief of Staff. Pagkatapos titingnan po ni Chief of Staff ito, bago niya idulog kay Secretary Lorenzana. Pero maaaring magbigay po ng advance copy sa mahal na Pangulo para sa kanyang reference.
Advance copy before Monday?
Opo.
Okay.
Actually, nagbibigay naman po talaga ang Defense Department sa ang Armed Forces ng daily update sa kanya.
Sir, last na lang. Sabi po ni Presidente, give him at least 10 to 15 days.
Yes.
Kaya
yes.
ba yun, sir?
Actually, lahat tayo nagnanais na tapusin na ito. Kung ako lang ang tatanungin nyo, dapat tapos na to ngayon o bukas sana. No? Pero may mga complexity kasi yung main battle area at alam naman natin po ano yung mga ito. Kaya nagiging maselan. Pero given this fact, our troops are leaning forward. They really want to finish this fight as soon as possible. And that's why they're all determined to hold on to the territory that was held already by our troops. Ayaw na nilang umatras kung meron mang pangangailangan. Lahat sila, sulong-sulong lahat at gusto nilang tapusin ito. Dahil pag hindi po natapos ito, karamihan po ng ating units ay mananatili dyan sa pangmatagalan. At gusto rin naman po nilang matapos para makabalik na sila sa kanilang mga himpilan.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, questions? David De Guzman.
Sir, you said 53 days na po ang bakbakan sa Marawi. Meron po bang natutunan ang AFP na weak point doon sa operations ng AFP or doon sa kung paano ginagawa ng AFP yung kanilang mga operations sa Marawi na posibleng pagandahin pa? Like, may sinabi po kasi si Defense Secretary po yata ito na sanay ang sundalo natin sa bakbakan sa kagubatan but not in urban areas. Are we looking at strengthening our urban warfare strategies?
Unang-una, lahat ng klase ng environment kaya natin. May mga dedikado tayong mga puwersa na pang-urban at pang-gubat tulad ng nabanggit ng kalihim ng Tanggulang Pambansa. At given that, hindi lang ganun kalakihan yung ating mga puwersa na nakalaan para sa mga urban territory. Kaya ang maaaring pagpulutan ng aral dyan is kinakailangan bang i-adjust pa yung bilang na ito? Kailangan pa bang padamihin ang puwersa na handang tumugon sa mga pangangailangan kung magkaroon ng military operation sa urban terrain? Yung mga bagay na yan. Pero wala pa po tayo sa punto na nakokulate natin lahat ng mga maaaring pagkunan ng aral. Gagawin po natin yan matapos na nagkaroon na po ng hinto itong mga putukan. But we are doing our part to archive all the records, all the reports, all the materials that can be taken from this experience so that we can improve on a continuing basis the efficiency and the effectivity of our armed forces.
Regarding naman po dun sa friendly fire ulit, nagkaroon ulit ng friendly fire pero hindi pa lumalabas yung unang result dun sa unang friendly fire na 10 yung namatay.
Unang-una, nais ko lang pong klaruhin ito. No? Yung unang naging insidente po noon, talagang matatawag nating friendly fire yan. Kasi mismong yung bomba na ibinagsak po ng ating sariling eroplano ay tumama sa kinaroroonan ng ating mga sundalo. Itong pangalawang insidente, hindi po natin talaga may tuturing na friendly fire per se dahil technically, yung bomba hindi po tumama sa sundalo. Naging consequential lang po yung pagsabog niya at yung pagguho ng gusali kung saan sila nagtatago. So that's why we termed it a airstrike accident or a mishap or something. No? So that's the technically. But because the bomb did not fall on the troops itself, but fell in a proximate area that caused an infrastructure to topple down, and the debris which fell caused the death of 2 of our men and injury to 11 others. Fortunately, the injured were not serious. They were all ambulatory in nature. So yun po yung kaibahan. At sa lahat po na nangyayaring ito, pinagpupulutan pa rin natin ang aral. Kaya nagkakaroon na po ng investigasyon. And I'm not at liberty to discuss it anymore because the investigation has already started. Now, the results of the last incident, nagkaroon po ng Board of Inquiry. At yung Board of Inquiry ay mere fact-finding. So dahil ito'y fact-finding, lahat ng kanyang nalaman dun sa kanyang ginawang pagsuri ng mga kaganapan ng unang linggo ng Hunyo, idinulog niya ito sa ating Chief of Staff, kay General Anyo. At yung rekomendasyon na yan ay inaksyonan kaagad ni Chief of Staff sa pamamagitan ng pag-i-endorso ng mga rekomendasyon sa kani-kaninyang mga serbisyo. So may mga nakalaan para sa Philippine Army na dapat tugunan at imbestigahan ng mas malalim, ganun din sa Philippine Air Force. At yan ay ginagawa ngayon.
Yung pong FA-50 po, tama po, yung ginamit dun sa second na incident?
Tulad ng aking nabanggit, and I'm not at liberty to discuss it now because of the investigation already.
Yes, sir. Pero grounded po siya. Grounded po yung mga
Ang protocol
planes.
po kasi sa Air Force, kung sakaling mayroong aksidente ang isang particular na aeroplano o anumang klaseng insidente na related, hindi mo po muna gagamitin yan hanggat hindi po natutukoy kung ano talagang punot dulo ng nangyari.
So, may tuturing po ba, malaking kawalan po ba yung pagkaka-ground ng mga aeroplano na yon in the operations of...
Hindi naman, kasi may iba pa rin mga aeroplano na pwedeng gamitin na available sa ating mga ground commanders.
Thank you, sir.
Naman.
Yellow of CCTV.
Sir, I would like to know, because I just saw the PPT that we add a number like house clearing, it's 48. That means we cleared the buildings yesterday, 48 is the number?
Yeah. When we say buildings, that means to say facilities or houses. They may be small houses or big houses or are exactly a big building. So we have not differentiated. The numbers indicate whatever infrastructure that we have entered and cleared of any kind of IED or any explosives that may have been left. So the clearing will continue. At the very beginning of the conflict, we estimated about 1,500 to 2,000 total infrastructure that needed to be cleared. Right now, we're down to the last 600 plus. So we're moving progressively. And as each day goes, 3 days ago, we cleared 54. The other day, 53. Now we're clearing 48. And we hope to clear more buildings as we go on.
Okay. And another issue is I noticed a picture on Twitter that it posts like a soldier who wear worn boots. And you, in a previous interview, you told me that our soldiers are lack of bulletproof. So I would like to know how's the situation of our supplement for the military in the front, and do we need support for this? And what's the challenges now we still face to fight with the terrorists?
I'm sorry, Yellow, I cannot answer matters that are operational in nature. But suffice to say, we are providing for our men appropriately as needed.
Okay, thank you, Yellow. Philip Tobesa.
Sir, follow up lang po dun sa buildings and infrastructures. You mentioned around 40 or 50 ang kiniklear natin araw-araw.
Yes, about that much.
So we still have 600.
Yeah, estimate.
So
estimate, yes.
that will be 12 days more?
Yeah, so we are right into the 10 to 15 days of the President.
Apo.
But
Pero,
the 10 to 15 days is beyond the SONA, by the way. So don't expect it to be before the SONA.
Yes, and yung expiration po kasi ng 60 days ng martial law is on Saturday. So
right.
Ilang araw na. So this is going to go beyond the 60 days ng martial law. Tama
yeah,
po ba?
The assessment is actually based on the operational imperatives that were given to us at the beginning of the declaration. So whether we have achieved or accomplished those operational imperatives is the gist of the assessment.
Would it be safe to say that we would ask for an extension or we would recommend an extension?
I cannot go beyond what I just said because the recommendation primarily is not yet done. And it is the decision of the leadership that will be the basis. So whatever they decide on, for how long it will be extended, if it is extended or if it's lifted, the armed forces will just comply.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Pia? Okay.
This is for Presidential Spokesman Abelia. Sir, how do you reconcile the President's new order to reinstate Superintendent Marvin Marcos with his promises to weed out corrupt policemen from the PNP?
The fact that the reinstatement of the superintendent is basically in compliance with the fact that he was suspended and that the suspension has been served and is eligible back to duty. Whatever, in other words, he's abiding by the rule of law.
But sir, isn't what he did also demoralizing to honest police, given that there are already findings within security personnel or agencies that, in fact, Marcos was drug-tainted and there are, in fact, charges against him? So isn't this demoralizing to honest police, what the President just did?
As far as we know, the morale of the armed forces is pretty high.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Pia.
Sir, and then secondly, could we just get the Palace reaction to the Ombudsman's statement that the President's kill threats are unacceptable?
Is what?
His kill threats are unacceptable.
That's her opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Cecil Ardizabal? Microphone.
Sir, follow up on the Marcos reinstatement.
Yes,
according to Senator Lacson, who is the chairman of the Committee on Public Orders, a Senate, who did the investigation on the Espinosa killing. There will be an investigation after the SONA on the reinstatement of Marcos. What can you say about this, sir?
The government will cooperate. I mean, the government through the PNP will cooperate with any investigations. We have always participated in any hearings, and we will continue to abide by that.
How do you think, sir,
we don't
this
think.
What can you say, sir, because the President has already reinstated Marcos, and
Yes.
yet legislators are saying that they are actually condemning the
Yes.
reinstatement, and that there will be an investigation specifically on the
Like I said,
reinstatement.
we will participate through the concerned agency.
Okay, thank you. Pia Gutierrez.
General, the PNP Chief Bato de la Rosa has said that he wants an extension of martial law in Mindanao. How big a factor will this be in the recommendation that you're crafting right now, sir?
Well, all the inputs of other agencies will be considered. Similarly, that of the PNP will be considered because they're part and parcel of the security sector. So all other inputs, particularly those that we culled from our own men in the ground, who are principally those involved in the fight, as well as of the local government, will be part of that.
Was the LGU considered also in
Yes,
the
I think
assessment?
our ground commanders did their homework. But as I mentioned, the primary consideration for the military assessment will be based on the operational imperatives that we were given at the very start.
Okay.
Okay, Spokesman Abelian. Sir, the Marawi LGU has expressed their disappointment na hindi sila kasama sa Task Force Bangon Marawi. So how do we answer this, sir? And also to be clear, ano po ba talaga yung role ng LGU ng Marawi, sir, in our recovery and rehabilitation efforts of the city?
Best address to...
Opo, bago ko po ibigay kay Director Lenny, baka may idadagdag siya. Kami po sa Armed Forces, importante po, mataas po ang tingin natin sa ating mga kasamahan sa LGU. Kasi kabahagi sila ng ating ginagawang operasyon dyan, at bukod dyan, malaki ang kanilang magiging role sa pagbangon ng Marawi. They being the leaders duly elected by the people of Marawi City. So kung sino yung nahalal, ibig sabihin, nasa kanila ang confidence ng taong bayan at kinakailangan marinig natin yan. So sa pagbangon ng Marawi, kinakailangan sila rin ang isa sa mga principal entities sa interagency task force natin na siyang magli-lead sa pagbangon ng Marawi. Kaya importante ang role nila. Ngayon, tungkol dun sa sinasabi na hindi sila naging kabahagi, may provision naman po dun sa may administrative order na nakalagay na ang LGUs ay kinakailangan maging party po ng proseso. Maaring hindi lang na-expand yung provision na yon, pero nandoon nakasaad po. At batid naman namin na simulat sa poll nung nagsimula yung ating early recovery stage, kinoconsult po sila. So hindi po maaring hindi sila maging kabahagi. They must and will always be part.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am Lenny Alegre.
Gusto ko lang dagdagan din yung point ni General da hindi ibig sabihin na hindi ka kasama doon sa napangalan ng ahensya ay hindi ka na-involved sa recovery and rehabilitation. And binigyan ng delegated authority ni President si Chairperson S&D Lorenzana to engage whoever is necessary to be there. And wag po nating kalimutan na sa local government code natin, ang LGU po ay napakalaki ng boses sa kanilang kanya-kanyang lugar. Kaya nga po, nabanggit ko kanina, hindi pa man lumabas ang Administrative Order 3, nagpunta na po kami sa Iligan at nagkaroon na po ng early recovery meeting ang National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council together with the local government units. Kasi inilam na po namin kung ano yung mga pangangailangan nila at ano yung preference nila in terms of redevelopment. If I can call it that way, redevelopment of Marawi City. And may mga inputs na po sila na kinukonsider ng task force members, especially yung mga lead ng ating committees, na kailangan maisama po doon sa planning stage ng ating paggawa ng Comprehensive Recovery and Rehabilitation Program. So sa Lunes po, ngayon may meeting sa kanila, and then sa Lunes ay ipo-formalize natin na ilatag yung initial plan. So hindi po natin gagawin yung plano na wala pong partisipasyon ng LGU. Malaki po ang participation ng LGU, and of course, pagdating din po sa financing, meron naman po silang stake doon sa financing po.
Pero beyond po dun sa mga consultation na ginagawa, asking for their participation, may active role din po ba sila within the task force?
Yes. In fact, nung kami ay unang pumunta nung June 30, kaagad-agad po, kahit hindi pa na-publish yung membership ng task force, si local government ng Marawi, si Marawi City Mayor, may nakahanda ng lugar. 10 hectares for relocation or temporary shelter site. At napakaganda po ng lugar. Kaya kung kayo'y mapunta doon, bisitahin nyo rin para makita nyo. Baguio po yung lugar, ang klima. At saka magandang, hindi ka may stress, kumbaga. So maganda siyang site for those na kailangan nating dalhin ulit sa kanilang nakasanayang environment. Yun po.
Okay, thank you, Joseph Morong. Last 3 questions. Joseph, Philip, 4, Deo, and Hannah.
Sir, kay spokesman muna.
Yes.
Sir, sa Bucor, has the President accepted the resignation of Mr. De Los Santos?
Yeah. Ang pagkakaalam ko is he has submitted his resignation, and we respect that, and we thank him for serving the administration, and we're confident that reform initiatives that he spearheaded under Oplan Pagbabago will continue, and we bid him good luck.
Sir, kay Superintendent Marcos, why couldn't the President just let him go?
Come again?
Kay Superintendent Marcos, why couldn't just the President let him go?
Why couldn't the
President just let him go?
What do you mean just let him go?
I mean, like, he wanted him reinstated, and then yung mga kasos...
By the way, correction, it's not a reinstatement. He was never dismissed. He was simply suspended. So basically, that was the process. He was suspended, he served his suspension, and he's back in active duty.
All right, sir. So BIR, sir, is the President aware of some sort of an infighting between one of the Deputy Commissioners and the Commissioner himself?
I'm not sure about I'm sure he's constantly updated every day. And I don't know about the details, but I'm sure he is.
Just last one for both spokes, General Padilla and spokes. Yun pong sa Turkish Embassy, did we verify that? Is that what they're saying is true, sir? May mga Turkish terrorists in the Philippines?
We're closely looking into it. I just cannot have a reply to you now because the inquiry has not yet been finished. So the revelations need to be looked into very carefully. So that's what we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you. Brief na lang, MPC, Philip Tubesa, Deo, and Hannah.
Ay, kay General Padilla po, ilan pa pong terrorists ang remaining sa Marawi?
Sa estimate ng ground commanders natin, sa bilang ng kanilang nakikita, nasa mga 80 pa daw yung mga kalaban na naiiwan sa loob. At yung sa 4 na barangay na patuloy nating pinapasok, yung 2 doon kasi makana-kana lang ang nagiging labanan. Pero yung 2 natitira pa ay medyo matindi pa rin. So maaaring nandun nagkukuta yung mga leaders ng grupong ito or mayroon silang binabantayan na hindi pa natin alam.
What about, sir, yung civilians na trapped or
Ang civilians, patuloy na nananatili sa about 300, including the hostages, yung unaccounted, according to LGU.
Kay Secretary Abella po, sir, yung kay Ombudsman Morales lang, meron po kasi siyang specific statement na the President is goading or egging people to arm themselves and kill drug suspects daw po.
I think she's really taking it out of context. You know, again and again, we've stated about how the President expresses himself, and that particular statement may have been taken out of context. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Deo?
Sir, balik tayo sa Bucor. Ganun na lang po ba yun? Kasi parang wala po bang command responsibility na under Bucor chief na nag-resign ay nandun pa rin yung drugs? Wala po bang mangyayaring investigation kung bakit nagpatuloy yung drugs? And how about yung kung tatanggapin po ba ni Presidente yung suggestion ni Secretary Aguirre na he's endorsing, I think, new DBP Chief Junicio Santiago to replace Benjamin?
Let's wait for the process to unfold. Wag natin pangunahan yung mga kung ganun lang ba. But certain steps are being taken to make sure that the drug problem inside the new NBP is addressed.
Isn't Malacanang dismayed na after all the efforts na ginawa ng Presidente, nakulong si Senator De Lima, and the drug operations in NBP still continues under Secretary Aguirre?
Again, like the good secretary has said, he may have certain actions may have been overtaken by events, especially by what has happened down south. But that is not an excuse. If you're asking if the president is dismayed, definitely this presents quite a challenge. However, we are up to it, and we will make sure that is properly addressed.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you,
Deo.
sir.
Last question, Hannah?
For Secretary Abella. Sir,
ma'am.
reaction dun sa sinabi ni Senator Gordon na...
Senator?
Senator Gordon.
Yes.
Tinawag niyang duwag si Bato dahil hindi niya kayang diretsuhin si Pangulong Duterte na dun sa reinstatement po kay Bato.
You're asking me if it's